the students tune in on the generation gap. There's an electro-charged meeting of the minds. A high-speed computer accidentally drains its brain into a not-so-bright campus clown who becomes a socket-shocked human computer. Now the tennis shoes are on the computer, and the laughs are on the establishment as they try to cash in on his super brain. This high-speed computer game is programmed for fun, geared for action, and set to beat the establishment.
Welcome, everyone, to the Medfield College Film Society. I'm Jeff Crawford, and I'm happy to welcome you to Season 2 of this podcast. I would like to welcome my society members along with me. First, in the mountains of North Carolina, Mr. Andy Brown. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well, Jeff Crawford. I'm so excited to be here this evening, and I'm excited to talk about this film.
It's always exciting. We've had a great summer of movies, and Andy, you got to pick the last one. How does it feel to pilot one of these episodes yourself?
It was not easy, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next time I get to do it.
Well, I'm sure that will happen. Now, down to the swamps of Central Florida we go. Michael Crawford, how's it going tonight?
It is going well, rested and relaxed and ready to go.
And to the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina, is Mr. Robert McSwain, the founder of our podcast. Robert, how's it going?
Season 2.
Season 2.
They said it never would happen.
That's right. We're here. We're improved. We have all kinds of crazy new features and catchphrases. Not really.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a fun summer, though, to go into these different movies and kind of different, a little change of pace. But I'm glad to be back in the world of the feature film. Boys, did you have any favorite moments of the summer?
As always, I take great pleasure in introducing people to the Mouseketeers at Walt Disney World. Because I'm a bad person.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I take great pleasure in introducing people to Ollie Hot Noodle's Haven of Bliss, which got completely panned on Twitter. One of our loyal listeners said, "I don't think I could do this, guys. Sorry."
I love that it had a rep in advance. There was already trepidation. People just had they couldn't even remember why, but they just had this sort of lingering caution about Ollie Hot Noodle.
I take no pleasure in introducing anyone to Descendants, so I apologize.
And it was great to have Joey Kramer on for an interview. We'd like to thank him again for his time being with us. That was a lot of fun.
Woo-woo.
Yes, it was a real pleasure to sit down and talk with him about some stuff. All right, so here we go. Season 2, press play. Michael, what are we watching tonight?
Tonight, we are watching the 1969 Disney classic, The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, starring Disney legend Kurt Russell as Dexter Riley, Cesar Romero as A.J. Arno, and a bevy of iconic character actors, including Joe Flynn as Dean Higgins, William Schallert as Professor Quigley, Alan Hewitt as Dean Collingsgood, and Richard Bacallion as Chile. It also, incidentally and randomly, features legendary voiceover actor Frank Welker, yes, Megatron himself, as Henry, one of Dexter's pals, and another prolific voice actor and Disney veteran, Pete Renaday, as a cop, Lieutenant Hannah. Now, you may know Pete Renaday as the voice of Henry, the host of the Country Bear Jamboree. He was also, I believe, Captain Nemo on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and also involved in Discovery Bay, among other things. So a lot of talent there.
Wow.
The film, yeah.
And we got to return to Medfield College, you know?
Yes, absolutely. The film was produced by Disney legend Bill Anderson and directed by Robert Butler, who has an enormous list of film and television credits, including the original pilot for Star Trek, which I was surprised by. For Disney, he directed The Barefoot Executive, Scandalous John, Now You See Him, Now You Don't, and Hot Lead and Cold Feet. A Don Knotts classic. It was written by Joseph McEvedy, who was an assistant director on many Disney films, including Mary Poppins, and who also wrote a number of Disney films, including the entire Dexter Riley trilogy. The film tells the story of Dexter Riley, a below-average student at Medfield College, who, after an accident during an electrical storm, becomes a living computer.
And is this the first installment of the Dexter Riley trilogy?
Yes, this is the first of 3 Dexter Riley films that Kurt Russell made for Disney, each one involving some superpower that he obtains from a scientific mishap, and hijinks ensue, obviously.
And then it's around the time he does the Haunted Mansion special as well, right?
Yes, in fact, I think it's the same year, I want to say. Maybe not the same year. But it is around the time that he does the Disneyland Showtime episode, where they go through the Haunted Mansion with the Osmonds and E.J. Peeker.
Who's E.J. Peeker?
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, thank you.
And as you mentioned, this is another movie with good old Medfield College, which first appeared in The Absent-Minded Professor, which you can learn more about in the inaugural episode of our podcast. But all the campus scenes this time, aside from the first establishing shot, were filmed on the Disney lot in Burbank, with the students hanging around outside the old animation building and on the porch of the commissary. And one last interesting fact is that the static photograph that they have outside the window of Dean Higgins's office is the same image that they used for the view from Walt Disney's fake office in episodes of The Wonderful World of Disney TV show. So they used the same prop for his office here.
I would like to add that Robert Butler and Bruce Belland were on tap for the music and the song, the computer wore tennis shoes, and they were also responsible for Boatniks.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
So I have a question for Andy. Andy.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I'm assuming you haven't seen this before, right?
That's correct. This was my first time.
Okay. So now that you've been through a year of watching these movies, and especially some from this period, did you have a sense of some of the vernacular? I mean, there were some of the same actors from Absent-Minded Professor, maybe some other movies thrown in. Did you kind of say, I don't know what's happening here. I know what I'm in for.
That's a good question. I don't think I noticed that there were same actors from previous films. But it had the same kind of feel, and of course, being in the Medfield, and there was a few things that happened in this one that I felt were almost callbacks to Absent-Minded Professor.
Yeah, but like you say, Jeff, and a lot of these people had been in films before, some in the films that we've seen, and a lot appear, especially during the 70s movies.
Oh, yes.
The 3 Dexter Riley movies and even some adjacent movies, they pop up a lot. So there is a familiar feel for sure.
I will say this. It was I noticed, how I've said this before, that I'm a big fan of the Andy Griffith Show, and there are a lot of Andy Griffith Show actors in this movie. And I will bring those up as we get to them.
All right. Well, Andy, do you have a non-spoiler reaction to this film that we can get from you?
Sure. I was disappointed that there was not more. The title was misleading. When I went into this movie thinking this is going to be like a computer sports movie, and so
sabermetrics movie.
Yeah, it was. So the title is very misleading. That's a complaint of mine. But this was a movie that I connected with on many ways because in my profession I work with computers, and so there's some things that I really just kind of in a way not really hit close to home, but I don't know, it was just kind of familiar feeling. So yeah, we'll get to it.
All right, well, we should get to it. Let's go into the world of the computer wore tennis shoes.
The computer wore tennis shoes and a twinkle in his eye. Never met a groovier dude, an electric kind of guy. Socket shocked and soundly socked him to a real cerebral high. Blowing his mind into the kind that leaves old Einstein wigging out behind.
We begin with an incredible song that I can't really do justice, as Jeff mentioned. Never met a groovier dude, an electric kind of guy, blowing his mind into the kind that leaves Einstein wigging out behind. It's a great song. I think this has to be the most iconic theme song we've had yet of any of the films we've watched.
It's funny how different it is from Boatniks, but it's the same team. I mean, you know, they're both iconic in their own ways. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. They bust out the rhymes on this.
One is simplicity and one is dense, you know.
Super dense. And again, with the real late 60s vibe, he's turning on every chick in town. So it's a little, you know, entendre.
And something I picked up from it is the graphics. You know, they have a lot of squares
punch
and things.
Card.
Exactly. It made me think of the old programming punch cards used to program computers.
Hanging chads.
That's right. These animated credits. Yeah, lots of old computer imagery, which I thought was kind of fun, and like the sort of cascading numbers, kind of Matrix style, but
that's what I said in my notes here. I really want that punch card as a screensaver.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
The scrolling punch card, the graphic that was going in the background.
IBM numeral font. Anyway, we open in our beloved Medfield College, where a board meeting is underway. Professor Quigley wants a new computer, and Dean Higgins is chewing him out about how they can't afford it. He is apparently invested heavily in live frogs for biolab and new Bunsen burners for chemistry class, and there's nothing left for something as extravagant as a computer. It's a luxury they cannot afford.
A computer. That's
a computer? Are you crazy?
A computer?
Yeah.
So Professor Quigley, as soon as I saw him, I said, "Hey, there's Sam from the Andy Griffith Show from the episode Quiet Sam." Do you guys remember that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Also, Patty Duke's dad.
Yes.
And also was in an episode of Deep Space Nine where he was like a Bajoran clarinetist. So he has a career that spans the years.
He has a personality of a Bajoran clarinetist. He's very reasoned.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's the sensible one. Yes. Yeah. Little does the dean know, however, that the floral arrangement on the table has been bugged. And we cut to some students outside listening to the conversation on the walkie-talkie. As I said, they're outside the old animation building on the studio lot. And they're all in very splendid early 70s garb, late 60s, early 70s garb. There's a lot of fringe, a lot of turtleneck action.
So much turtleneck in this movie, and it made me very jealous. Yes.
It has the most turtleneck, ratio of any movie we've seen. There's especially Dexter later has a turtleneck blazer combo that is quite envious. Absolutely.
Yes. And the mustard turtleneck, especially.
Yes. Absolutely. Lots of earth tones. Back in the meeting, Quigley says that State gives an entire course in computer technology that Medfield must modernize or fall behind. Regent Dietz, who is ancient, is barely able to stand up and says modernization isn't everything before collapsing again.
Sit down, old man.
Yeah.
So this is the Medfield College of Technology, correct?
Yes. Not much technology. Well, they got those live frogs and the
they got the frogs though, so that's good.
But I mean, it's when they cut to this, it feels like we're coming way into the middle of something, and we should know these characters, especially the ones outside listening in. That's why I asked if this was the first of the series. It just feels like a familiarity that they're giving you that you don't have yet. It's like, who are these?
That's
people?
A really good point. Yeah, it would make much more sense if it was the second or third, and you already knew who all these people were. That's a very good point. As we see, Higgins says the college budget is in trouble. The bankers won't even return his phone calls. There's unrest everywhere, and it's tough to be a dean. There's unrest. The students are still listening in, and they're clearly on Quigley's side, and we see why when some of the regents start talking about removing the dead wood, the quote-unquote ne'er-do-wells who should be expunged from the college to keep Medfield competitive.
60s, man.
Yeah. To which I ask, what are your admissions policies, Medfield College? How do these people get in there? You can't kick them out after the fact. But Quigley sticks up for the students, saying that the not gifted students have the same needs as the gifted students. And he wants to capture the imagination of the students. But Higgins has a list of kids he wants to put on probation. He reads the list, and this is how we meet our heroes, Dexter Riley and his band of pals. That man's all hate, says his friend Skylar. The kids say they'd love to somehow get the computer for Quigley, which would also send Higgins through the roof. But the computer costs $10,000.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, unthinkable sum.
Shazam.
Well, I did the inflation on that. It's roughly $70,000 in today's money.
Oh, wow.
For a single computer.
Yeah.
That's about right. Hey, but you guys also notice that they kicked out Keith Richards?
Yeah, I got that in my notes there.
That was one of the names. I was like, whoa.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It should probably be
Yeah. Especially in 69. I'm sure he was really
Yeah.
You want to talk about a ne'er-do-well?
He never comes to class.
Dead wood. So the computer is being sold by AJ Arno, who's an investment big shot in town.
Oh, boy. Here we
How
go.
many investment firms are in this town?
No. Well, this goes back to Absent-Minded Professor, where we're wondering exactly how big is Medfield and how much action is going on around town. Because like Alonzo Hawk had all those big bets coming in on the high school basketball game. So who knows?
He was laying the bets with AJ.
AJ's like the upper crust kind of
Yeah.
Alonzo Hawk of Medfield. So Dexter says he used to be a janitor at Arno's company, and he thinks they could talk Arno into donating the computer to Medfield outright.
Makes sense.
Sure. So we cut to Arno's office where Whistler's mother looks on.
Which
Which is a nice touch. Arno says he loves Medfield, but he's already giving them $20,000 a year, and he couldn't throw the computer in on top of that. But after a big moment of performative contemplating, he says he likes their spunk. And if he really thinks about it, he might be able to work something out.
And I might be wrong, but like he doesn't have anything but Whistler's mother on those walls of his office. That's like it. It's like
Yeah.
That was suspicious right there. Yeah.
Yeah, something's definitely up there.
Mid-century paneling. Also, I'll say that Arno has like weird Latin American Walt Disney vibes.
Yes.
Yeah, he was just giving me those Walt vibes throughout. When he's being the
vibes.
big fluffy businessman with his friends in his office. So after the kids leave, Arno opens a secret door in his office, Batman style.
Right here's where the movie changed for me. Because I'm thinking, this is just, I did not know, first of all, this was a crime-related movie at all. And so as soon as Whistler's mother separated and the song, that little music cue was played, I was like, I was immediately in. I was like, this just went a different direction than my expectations. And so I actually got very excited at this point.
I can't read you, Andy, man. I was sitting there watching this going, Andy's going to think this is so stupid.
I've lowered my bars so much.
That's right. We've dragged Andy's bar down.
Everything is relative. Incidentally, the director of this movie did direct a bunch of episodes of the Batman TV show. So I wonder if that's where the hidden elevator came from. But,
yeah. I think in my notes I put, this just got interesting is what I wrote down.
Yes. Well, clearly there's something going on because the elevator takes Arno down to what is obviously a nefarious counting house for illicit activity. There is a real beauty of a giant computer that the computer tech switches on, and it begins reporting the earnings from all their criminal enterprises. Arno tells his assistant not to send the promised 20 G's to Medfield, that it's all taken care of. So, back at Medfield, Quigley's computer lab is being filled with a ton of computer equipment. Computers were very complicated and come in lots of parts, apparently. There's a timely Cold War joke about how Quigley is such a slave driver. If he had been in charge of that Russian 5-year plan, they would have made it. They also make a joke about how next time they'll do something easy, like hijacking a Cuban airliner.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it seemed maybe a little too soon, but
Easy,
Yeah.
easy.
Oh boy.
Really, there are a couple of jokes in this movie that I'm like, man, they're topical in this one, man.
so I want to add something here. So first of all, they said this was this is a hand-me-down computer.
Yeah,
So yeah, okay. But yeah, on a side note here, my dad worked as an accountant at a company that sold commercial lawnmowers, but that's beside the point. But they wanted a computer in the late 70s, and they had to put it into a giant room. They had to move a bunch of the people's offices out just to make room for the computer. And they bought it from WBTV for $10,000. And he said it never did anything. It just sort of sat there and whirled and made noise, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's our computer." So it was just bizarre, like, need for giant computers back then.
the secondhand computers you get from WBTV. I wonder what WBTV was doing with a computer.
I don't know what they needed a giant computer for.
They needed it to compute Mike McKay.
Yeah,
that's for the 0.001% of our listeners. So Dean Higgins shows up in the computer lab, and he silently shoves a letter in Quigley's face. It's from Arno saying how much he loved talking to the students, and in lieu of his typical $20,000 contribution, he's sending the computer instead.
Okay. Can you let's stop there. I didn't understand this. Why? What's his reasoning there?
Yeah, I couldn't
I
figure.
don't
I
I mean,
didn't get it
that-
either.
Yeah.
like,
Because
they never say that he's like, "Oh, we're buying a new computer. We need to get rid of this one anyway.
Right.
So let's just do that."
exactly. I didn't understand why he had it to begin with. Yeah, he had some information on there, but so. And then second, I didn't ever understood why he donated it. But I was able to let that logic fly past me and still, keep going.
Yeah,
So,
well, you're becoming accustomed to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of pitched as a way for him to get out of donating $20,000, but it's still like he still needs a computer, one would assume. So they needed a line where he's like, "Well, we're getting in this sweet new computer. We need to ditch this old one anyway. So just
got this laptop.
Yeah. So Higgins is not happy about any of this. He says the kids have cost the school $20,000 and he's going to be watching them.
God,
So-
he's
He's a little intense.
Yeah, sit on
high
it,
strung.
Higgins.
Back in class, Quigley is teaching about computers and talking about how they're an imitation of the human brain, complete with an illustration of how the parts of the computer match the parts of the brain.
Oh man, computers are going to replace us, man.
They're going to replace us. Well, he set up
Freaking
an
out.
experiment
Terminator.
to show how they can replace us. He's programmed a kind of proto-nest system that will detect rainfall and, in turn, close the window of a house, open the door to let the cat in, and automatically dial the telephone and play a pre-recorded grocery order.
A little bit of the if this, then that.
In so many words, yes. He also conspicuously points out that a big point in favor of the computer is its infallible memory.
Yeah,
To be continued. Before Arno owned the computer, it belonged to the Space Research Center at the Pacific Institute of Technology. And they sent along a tape containing solutions to a series of problems that a spaceship would encounter on a mission to Saturn.
I thought that was so random.
Doesn't relate to anything
No.
at all in the movie.
No.
I thought, oh, well, we're going to go, he's going to be like a space expert. No,
Yeah.
doesn't come up again. But another weird thing about this is he says the program was in operation 20 years ago,
Yes.
which is bizarre because nobody was going to Saturn in 1949.
No.
It's a simulation.
Whatever. Yeah, simulating.
What would it be like? Let's skip over to
Alan Turing had just invented his calculating machine at that point, and just a few years prior to that. So yeah, they were.
So as far as this is probably covert.
Good point.
That's
Yeah.
true. It was the Secret Service
Right.
building their mission to Saturn post-war. Anyway, the program goes haywire and starts slamming the door and window from his previous experiment, and it short circuits the computer. Wah, wah. In a flash, Higgins comes on the PA and says that the big state standardized test is coming up the next day. And he hopes that Medfield would do better than the previous year when they came in 36 out of 37 schools in the state. Question, why is college taking standardized tests, for one thing?
That was my first question. Yes.
Second, it's weird because they kind of have this joke that goes nowhere where he says, we came in 36. And then Dexter's talking to his girlfriend. He's like, hey, there are only 37 schools in the state. Like, yeah, I wonder who came in last. And there's never like, I was like, is that leading to something? No, it's just a weird little
Rutland.
joke. Yeah. We hope. Meanwhile, Quigley needs to replace the part of the computer that blew out, but he doesn't have time to make it to the electronics store that day. Dexter says he'll do it, even though it's a 70-mile drive to the electronics store.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess there aren't that many around. Quigley says that Dexter should be studying for the big test, and although Dexter says he knows it all already, Quigley persists. Dexter says that he's up to his ears with it, and the fresh air of the drive will do him good.
My man.
We cut to later in the car, where Dexter has picked up the part. It is pouring the rain, and Dexter has insanely taped up notes and loose leaf paper all over the windows of his car. He's got a pencil hanging from the ceiling by a shoelace and has his textbook up against the steering wheel and is making notes as he drives.
It's a don't text, don't drive world. 60s,
Yeah.
man. You can do whatever you want in this course.
The rain effect totally looked like a blizzard when I first saw it. Like, it,
Yeah, I
it
thought
was
that
not
too.
translating very well on screen, but continue.
Yes, he's this was before safety was for everyone. I'm surprised it didn't get a warning for this scene alone. Anyway, it's storming badly when he gets back to Medfield, and rain is coming in through the lab's open window, which is not smart. There are electrical cables everywhere and a high voltage sign, and Dexter
Yes.
is soaking wet. Brilliantly, he plugs the circuit board he picked up into the computer and, tripping over some cords in a puddle of water, grabs hold of two hanging electrical cables. He is electrocuted, and the computer goes haywire, with buttons a-blinking and tape a-spinning. He is somehow still alive, but the computer is fried, and he just kind of pieces out of the lab.
Why was he going to install the part? Why was that part of the job?
I know, there's a little extra credit there. It's just
Yeah.
a little out of his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We've already established he's kind of dumb, so I wouldn't go for that.
Yeah. Robert, I was thinking of you. I know you're building a new computer right now, and so I was thinking of you as I saw this part.
I was kind of thinking of myself as well, hoping that I don't fry my brain. And
I was just hoping that, keep your windows closed if
Yeah.
it's raining.
Keep the standing water out of your computer room.
Yes.
yeah, that's
Please
yeah,
have
exactly.
no large lakes of standing water as you put together your computer and plug it in.
I'm currently dropping in a couple of 440 volt lines to run my computer.
Yeah, don't keep your exposed electric lines just hanging from the ceiling, like, I don't know, just loosely hanging. Later, back in his dorm, Dexter is talking in his sleep. He's giving the same readout we heard Arne's computer give earlier, punctuated by computer beeps. His roommate wakes him up to see if he's okay and says he's been beeping. Burping? Dexter asks. No, beeping.
Classic.
Yeah, a little edgy content there. They drift back off, and the next day in the computer lab, a crew of computer experts is there trying to revive the computer that Dexter fried. But they're not having any luck. Dexter killed the $10,000 computer.
They can't get a spark out of it, man. They can't get a
Yeah.
spark out of the computer.
No. Spark it up, fellas. Quigley is administering the state test, and he points out that it is a speed test. They will be graded on how many questions they answer correctly, which I think is the same for every test ever. But regardless, they start the test, and Dexter's slow to start. But once he gets going, we hear computer noises as he checks off the answers one by one.
I like he says he's eating the food though. That's kind of a good little gag. Where he's the loud one. It kind of reminded me of the Mr. Bean episode where he's kind of pulling something out of his pot, or he's taking the test and he's being really loud.
Yes,
Okay.
totally. Yeah. He's not really aware of what's going on around him because he gets quicker and quicker and he's flipping pages and almost accelerating out of control. And this is annoying everyone around him, but he's flying through the test and finally slams it shut loudly. And he seems startled. Everyone else is rolling their eyes and Quigley looks confused. Dexter thinks his watch has stopped because he finished so quickly. So he takes it and like bangs it against the table really hard, which I don't know how that works. It's a sweet watch though. Very 1960s chronometer he has. Then he starts trying to finish his girlfriend's test as well because he just can't stop. After she shoos him off, he awkwardly rocks in his chair a little bit. And then, as Andy says, he noisily takes his lunch out of an enormous paper sack. And he bites into a sandwich, which for some reason is incredibly crunchy sounding.
Yeah, it's a potato chip sandwich.
Yeah, clearly he's got like Fritos on there or something because it's the Foley is completely out of line with the appearance of the sandwich. Finally, he gives up. And we cut away. So we find Higgins and Quigley talking about Dexter. Higgins is convinced that Dexter cheated on the test somehow, but Quigley is sure that something has happened to Dexter to make him pass the test in 4.5 minutes without making a mistake. They've spent $20 whole on a doctor to come take a look at Dexter. And the doctor calls them over. They take turns looking into Dexter's eye, through which they see B-roll of various computer banks and flashing buttons. This was a great moment for me personally.
Yes.
That cutaway.
Yeah. A quick note: the doctor who examines Dexter is that's Orville Monroe. It was the character name on the Andy Griffith Show, who owned the funeral home. He was also on the town council.
No way!
Yeah,
I totally didn't pick that up.
Yeah, played by actor Jonathan Hull.
Then they pull up some kind of scope to Dexter. I'm not sure what it is. And on a monitor, we see a cutaway of Dexter's head with his brain with computer parts, dancing girls, roulette wheels, slot machines, and my favorite, a girl in a bikini getting into a bathtub that is also a car.
That was the high point of the movie for me. It's all downhill.
Yeah,
from
it really
here.
was a high water mark there. It didn't make any
That car.
sense.
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt to ignore the lady, but the car is what is that car? It's like a roadster with like Victorian seats, and it's like a double potted. It's something, man. It's wild.
It's like if Dreamfinder had a car that was also a bathtub.
In the 60s.
It's like something from The Prisoner.
Yes, it is like The
doesn't
Prisoner.
make any sense
Or
whatsoever.
Willy Wonka, maybe. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Also Willy Wonka, yeah. Very strange.
And he like gives a shrug to the guys that are like looking at it like, I mean, it's in my head. Can't help it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say that was early pornography on computers? Is that just me? Okay.
Anyway, this gets Dexter on the front page of the newspaper and an invite to go on a quiz show to demonstrate his skills. But he doesn't want to go. The other students say he has a responsibility to go, no matter how tough it is. Dexter's convinced it just doesn't make sense. And so, with Dexter on his way to the quiz show, we end Act 1. What will happen next? Let's find out.
So, Dexter's a genius, and he's on to the quiz show. So I was a little confused by the quiz show, but anyway, so Dean Higgins is wandering around before the show starts, admiring all the fat cats that have come to the TV studio to witness Dexter's newfound ability. Fat cats like the mayor. Everyone is impressed to see the mayor. Also, Councilman Cooper's there, and Supervisor Straight. And then there's Dean Collins Good.
Yeah, I love. Well, this is Alan Hewitt. He was in Absent Minded Professor as the military guy who was going to shoot the missiles at the Capitol building. So I'm always glad to see him pop up.
Okay.
Yeah, every time I saw him, I kept thinking of 7,
Yes.
6, 5.
He's got a great voice. There's one I don't know if I have it in here where it is, but there's one point where he says to Dean Higgins, he calls him Eugene.
Yeah,
like,
I've got
Eugene.
Yeah,
It's so good.
So Dean Collins is the quote, the dean of the one and only, evidently, at the state school. We never find out what state it is. It's just the state school. So we last visited Medfield College, and Rutland University, a.k.a. Duke, was the villain school out to ruin Medfield. Now state, quote unquote, is the evil antagonist school. And I find it ironic that for the four of us, all of us have some sort of affiliation with a certain school in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, that also has neighboring schools that mirror Rutland and state. So
It's
I
all
gotta,
connected.
That's right.
it's all connected. And they keep talking about the tax dollars pouring into state.
Just getting mad tax money.
Yeah, this mad tax money happened in 1969. But anyway, so all the major networks are there to talk to Dexter. So there's this rule in Foley work here. And there's the next scene, Dexter sitting down in front of all the mics. So the rule in Foley is that when there's a hot mic present, you always have feedback at the same high frequency, always. That you have to do it whenever there's a mic in a scene. And I love that the guy steps into frame and just moves one mic and the feedback stops.
Yeah.
So,
I made a note that
which
you
is
would
very-
catch that. Yeah.
very inaccurate.
Yeah. Well, there's too much to go into there, but yeah, it's a gag. I had to text Robert about it because.
But no, let's go into it because I'm going to go into the weeds here for this one. So,
Well, he grabs one mic, right, and the guy moves the other mic for one, right?
yeah. So, but for video and audio, you never have monitors in the room. So there's no way to have feedback in a studio because the sound's going to the control room, and it just it made me mad. But,
Well, let's go in the weeds even further. What if there were monitors in that room?
why would there be monitors in the room?
I'm not saying why. Well, okay. Well, because maybe there's some people who are hard of hearing.
Maybe that regent is there, that old regent.
That old guy who said that modernization was ridiculous or whatever.
I worked at the rival to WBTV back in my early days, and we never had any kind of hot microphone feeding into a monitor in a studio where there were cameras.
This is
So,
1969.
This is because you didn't have any awkward people, because it's the international sign for being awkward. It's getting microphone feedback somehow. It feeds off the awkwardness.
See, I bought into it. I felt there were monitors there, so
It would create an echo, Andy. Come on.
It was a different time.
It was the 60s, man. 60s thing. Sure. Same feedback, though.
A skeptical professor from Purdue, so Purdue is relevant in this universe, tries to tangle Dexter up in a calculus problem. Dexter answers it with ease. Dexter scoffs at the panel and asks everyone to quit applauding for its delaying the whole process. I think he said a total of 39 seconds have been wasted through applause. Then he mocks them for wasting his time talking about mathematics, that he is capable of talking about any number of subjects.
Sheesh. Man, Dexter's changing.
Goes to his head real fast.
And his girlfriend, which we never really understood, the girlfriend thing to me was a little fuzzy but we'll get into that later here in this act.
I think it was fuzzy to Dexter too.
They're noticing that Dexter's getting quite cocky with his newfound knowledge. So we get a nice little headline. Medfield Marvel tours country, arrives in New York after day at White House. And Jeff, what did you think of these little musical cues that they were using with the headlines?
Just loving it. Having a great time. I also love the newspaper, the constant newspaper wipes that they're using to get from scene to scene. This is the second time that's happened. Where
there were a lot of them. That's true.
Yeah.
So Dexter lands in quote unquote Gotham, and the press is waiting on him. Similar to how the press were waiting on the Beatles when they arrived at JFK.
Hey, this is where we get the first double-breasted blazer moment. Not the last, but one of
Combo turtleneck.
And the pinstripes. Double-breasted pinstripe blazer.
Yeah, and the airport reporter, that's Mayberry Hotel clerk and choir director John Masters.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So the Dexter is greeted by two ladies from Yonkers.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if there was a joke there, but it seemed that why they made it Yonkers, but Dexter starts just laying it on them. I mean,
it's the 60s, man.
It's the 60s, free love. And his girlfriend, like I said, who it was kind of unclear whether or not, because if that's his girlfriend, I think she would have been like, all right, well, I'm through with that loser. But she seemed to be kind of like, oh, he's making out with two girls from Yonkers. Okay, that's not cool, but whatever.
That Dexter.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. They don't mean nothing to him, baby.
When in Rome.
They came down from Woodstock.
So Dexter gets a ticker tape parade through what I would assume is the Canyon of Heroes. Meanwhile, a band is playing Anchors Away, the Naval Academy fight song. If anything, it would seem reasonable that they would be playing the Medfield College fight song.
I think so.
Pointing that out. But the Naval Academy was maybe getting a ticker tape parade at the same time. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. It's like a catch-all parade.
Yeah,
it seems like ticker tape parade would be a bigger deal than a guy. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they just did more ticker tape parades.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, Jeff, because I did look it up because I was confused, because I was wondering the same thing. And it was a huge deal back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they were throwing them constantly in New York. Anytime a head of state was in town, like there was like the prime minister of, whatever was got one. And I didn't from some country I'd never even heard of in the 50s. And so anytime anybody was in New York, they were throwing parades for him. So maybe
TV hadn't taken off yet. So things were kind of slow.
Yeah. Dean Higgins is watching at home with glee as Dexter parades down Broadway. Higgins thinks Dexter needs to be pushing the school more. Quigley thinks he's pushing it too much. He could have had I'm kind of with Higgins there. He could have had a pin it or something. I mean,
don't be with Higgins, man. Don't be with Higgins.
Don't be it. You're a Higginite.
While
Higginark
is patting himself on the back. The Universal Encyclopedia, who happens to sponsor the college knowledge program, shows up to talk to Dean Higgins. How did Dean Higgins get to be in charge? I don't understand this guy. So if I was on board with him, I'm not anymore because Higgins goes out and is kissing the Universal Encyclopedia president's rear end. The college knowledge plot finally makes its first appearance in the movie.
Yeah, the college knowledge program is weirdly high stakes, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Super intense.
Quiz Bowl is a big deal in this universe.
It's a lot of cheddar. A lot of cheddar. It could buy you a few computers,
Nothing about the basketball team. Just wanted to say.
Yes.
Meanwhile, back in New York City, Dexter is hanging out at the UN, speaking with UN members in their native tongues.
It's amazing. It's just a blue screen of him in front of the UN with some people double clasp handshaking them with a real blue screen again in the double-breasted pinstripe suit. It's great.
And is it common knowledge that French is the official language of the UN? Because I don't think it is. I had to do some digging on that, but I thought there were several official languages. But
is it really?
I think it is, or it was at some point. Yeah.
According to my findings, sometime in the 50s, the Security Council voted in 5 official languages.
Oh, okay.
But French was not one of them, I don't think. But it seemed strange that they. So anyway,
if you can't speak French, you can get out.
That's right. Dean Collinsgood is watching the news as Dexter is attempting to master every language in the world. Collinsgood wants Dexter to transfer. So they can advance their research or solve mathematical equations, or they could do a number of things with Dexter, but the only reason they want him there is to win the college knowledge. That's like the first thing they want to check off the box, is to get Dexter at their school, be it Medfield or State, to win the college knowledge. Is not to do anything else. So I thought that was a kind of selfish act, but we'll get to that later. That becomes a plot point. So there's $100,000 at stake, and Collins Good sends for the football coach to come in to help, quote unquote, recruit Dexter, because that makes sense. College coach would be able to recruit an academic, right, to come to school.
Sure.
They love the jokes about the football program. They love it. That's always gold.
Now Dexter is at the Long Street Jewelry Salon, and they're about to cut the Calcutta Blue Diamond. And we get Sidman Van Dyke, a.k.a. the band director from Freaky Friday, doing his shtick.
This guy.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Mouth popping guy.
Yep.
See, I was ready for the pop this time because you told me, Michael, that this guy always did the pop. So I was ready.
Always got to have that pop, man. I'm so excited. I think he's
Signature
in a Herbie.
move.
He's in a Herbie too. So we may see him again someday.
So they're doing lots of cuts back and forth in this whole sequence between Dexter on his tour and Collins Good and Higgins watching the tour unfold on TV. Higgins is watching the diamond cutting on TV and patting himself on the back again because they're going to win the college knowledge tournament with Dexter on board. Quickly informs him that Dexter, in fact, has not enrolled in the next quarter. So there's trouble afoot. Where is Dexter going to end up? Is he going to go to State? Is he going to go to Medfield? Or is he going to go out on his own?
Is this when Higgins is like eating like roast beef or something? He's got like a TV dinner or something in front of the TV. It's kind of gross.
Dexter tells the diamond cutter that he's about to mess up the diamond and cut the wrong angle. The diamond cutter scoffs at him and tells him to, he motions for him to leave and makes a swishing sound with his, because that's the actor's whole shtick, is to make noises with his mouth. It's bizarre. And then he pulls out with a blade and I guess this must be common knowledge for diamond cutters. So any of you listeners who cut diamonds for a living, let us know if this is accurate. He hit it with like looked like a bottle or something. I mean, and it shatters into 1,000 pieces.
Who knew there was such a difference between cuts? That's a pretty big difference.
I like how he's got his like little diagram of like where he's going to cut and everything, like a little blueprint. This makes me nervous. This scene makes me I remember as a kid, it always made me like really nervous because they build it up as like what's going to happen.
Right.
I wonder who's the world's most foremost diamond jewelry cutter now. I don't know. Just made me wonder that. It's like, that was a big deal. I mean,
is it a computer?
Maybe we can. Yeah, it's a computer. $10,000 computer. Maybe we can interview them.
Yeah, let's find that guy or gal.
We get another headline transition with another great music cue. This time the headline reads, Dexter Riley visits Cape Kennedy, last stop on national tour. Dexter is on the phone with AJ as the Saturn V is launching. The footage of the Saturn V is quite breathtaking, I'll admit. Dexter arrives back at Medfield, and Annie is there to meet with him, and he blows her off and his friends. They confront him, and Annie wants to go to the lake with him, but he's just too busy.
Dexter's changed, man.
Point out that the plane that he arrives on is Walt Disney's personal plane. That he used to scout out the Florida property when they were going to buy all the land for Disney World. So they just had that plane at hand. There was also a weird extra in this scene that I was strangely drawn to. There was, in the gang of friends, there's this girl that we never see again, I don't think, with like really long, straight, like black hair. She's wearing like a black trench coat, like leather trench coat, and these little round, like dark purple glasses. And I don't know who she is. She's like this goth spy that wandered into the background in California in her long leather trench coat. It's really, I don't know, she really stood out to me.
Somebody from State.
Maybe so,
Must
yeah.
be, yeah.
It's like three little kids like on each other's shoulders in like a long trench coat from State.
I gotta get back and watch that scene.
Yeah, she's in there.
Dexter goes to the track with AJ and is betting on the ponies now, looking at things like weight, distance, past performance. He can pick the winner every time. Seems easy
Analytics, man.
Yeah,
Yep.
doing the
Moneyball.
sabermetrics on them horses.
AJ's goon is not buying it, but he places the bet on Market Doodle to win. A little continuity error here. The horse race begins, and the horse numbers keep changing color from black to white. So there were several cuts between an actual horse race they used. Number
went
8, Market
plaid.
Doodle.
I was gonna say, why did Dexter go to the track with Arno?
That is a good question. I didn't quite understand that either. Other than Arno,
Yeah, I used
saw,
to work for him, you know.
Yeah,
You just
I used to
invited
work
him
for him and
Is that-
saw.
is that what it-
It's a typical good time with your old boss who donated a
Yeah.
computer to your college. Go hit up the horse races.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a sub, have a hoagie.
Get a hoagie. Get you a sandwich.
He was really digging into that hoagie while the race was going on.
Yeah. Kurt Russell's quite an eater.
So Market Doodle takes the race on a come from behind victory. Dexter sits confidently eating his hoagie. Never a doubt in his mind who was going to win because he used his analytics to figure it out. AJ's goon takes Dexter out for pizza to pay him back for winning $28,000 at the track.
Man, but wait, what about this pizza restaurant?
I got so much to say about Garibaldi's.
Yeah. But shouldn't I feel like the Dexter maybe got shortchanged here instead of maybe getting a free pizza dinner. He should have at least gotten a percentage of the $28,000 he won, or maybe a handsome tip or something. From
Like having your goon take somebody out for pizza is not like a real reward. Like here, you get to go have pizza with my like greasy goon. Enjoy.
as Dexter leaves for, how do you pronounce the name of the restaurant?
Garibaldi's.
Yes. Higgins and Collinsgood show up to fight over Dexter. A side note, I'll ask Michael for confirmation, but it looked like in the background of the street there, it looked like the Hawk Mansion in the background.
Yeah, this is the residential street at the studio. Got Ned Brainerd's house, got Betsy's house, all that stuff is on here. But I'll say that first, Garibaldi's is an awfully swank place to go for pizza.
Yes.
Oh man.
As in that there's valet parking and like chandeliers and stuff.
Yes.
Also, you go in and immediately there's an enormous room of gambling.
Right.
Kind of behind a curtain, but not really. But clearly, this is not like a secret because everyone in town is there. There's valet parking for the gambling place, and it's just kind of wide open.
It's like the Canto Bite pizza parlor.
Yes, it is.
Dexter pulls up in a 1969 Mustang Mach 1. Higgins rolls in with a VW Carmen Ghia.
Nice.
And he has to have a bungee cord holding his door shut. And Collinsgood shows up in what appears to be a 69 Lincoln Continental because of all the state money. As Michael points out, this is no regular pizza joint. This is a gambling establishment with an enormous gambling back room.
But it's not really even the back room. It's kind of like the main room. And I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, what are Medfield's like vice laws? Because we've got horse racing, we've got this huge gambling thing. And at first I'm thinking like this is a legal establishment. I'm like, what's going on in Medfield, man?
Higgins and Collinsgood roll in, realize that it's a gambling joint, and immediately a raid takes place. And they all get arrested with Dexter and AJ's goons.
This cop that comes in, I don't know what was up with him, but he sounded like he was drunk. Like I couldn't tell if they were trying to make a joke or something. He sounds really weird when he's like, you know, telling everybody to stay still. But I keep going back to the fact Garibaldi's is the worst criminal front ever because it's like the most obvious thing I've ever seen.
They got good pizza, though.
Yeah, apparently. Best
the
in
best
town.
pizza.
Come for
Yeah.
the pizza, stay for the gambling.
I hope they serve the pizza on a roulette wheel. That would be like nice theming.
Dexter is sitting in jail now, realizing that he's made some wrong decisions hanging out with AJ in a dangerous underworld of Medfield College, or whatever the town of Medfield, I guess is where they are. Collinsworth and Higgins are just to the cell next to him, and they're fighting over who's going to get Dexter now. And everyone wants to take advantage of poor Dexter.
This convo gets deep. This is a deep convo with him and Chili.
Yes, I wrote that too. Everyone's just out for himself.
It gets very real.
It's like, yeah, you stick with me, kid. Yeah. Well, who are you looking out for, man?
Oh, yeah.
After a heart-to-heart with AJ's goon, Dexter finds out that he's been bailed out. As he walks out, he notices that his friends have all come to bail him out. And they're the only ones doing an unselfish act. They are ponying up their own money to help Dexter out. He realizes who really cares for him, and he decides to join the college knowledge team with his friends. And that wraps up what I believe was Act 2.
A guy that craves and amazes and otherwise saves the whole darn human race. Making the news, paying his dues. That turned all uptight, that out of sight, totally together computer antenna shoes.
Yeah, we got a debate about this. There's some controversy here, listeners, because as you know, we split these movies up into acts, and we're doing this episode a little different. You may notice where one of us is kind of taking each act, and so it was my privilege to get to do the third act. And when I saw where Robert ended, I was like, I don't feel like this is the end of Act 2. I feel like it still keeps going, but we can have that argument, or we can just kind of see where it goes. What do you guys think?
I don't know. We'll have to see. You got to make your case as you go.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay. Let's do it. Let's get into where Robert thinks Act 3 should start. Act 3, according to Robert, starts with Dexter just reading encyclopedias like nobody's business as his friends time him. A strange alarm lets them know that someone's there. What was that?
It's a fire engine siren.
Yeah.
But why?
Like a big siren on the wall for the doorbell. I love all the decor in, like, they're not in a dorm. They're all like living in like a house. And it's got like super 60s decoration everywhere. They got like a Jefferson airplane poster.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really far out.
Man.
Yeah. Really swinging joint.
Yeah, so that alarm goes off, and it's Professor Quigley, who just stops by and says he needs 3 more students for the college knowledge panel. And the dean has already given his own suggestions for great candidates, but Dexter suggests 3 of his own friends. In order to keep Dexter happy and prevent him from leaving Medfield, Dexter's friends join him as the Medfield Lions. Have they always been the Lions?
This was the first I had heard of it, because I don't think they mentioned it in Absent Minded Professor. So, yeah, this was a first.
Yeah, and there's definitely a color scheme change that goes on. But
yes, definitely.
Okay, yeah. So the Medfield Lions are taking on the Lockhurst Bulldogs. And Dexter says it doesn't look good for him to keep answering all the questions, so he tries to get his teammates to answer using information that he provides. However, they just get confused, and Dexter says that that's the last time he'll do that, as we see the newspaper headlines showing Medfield winning and moving on to face Patterson College in the quarterfinals. Now let's fast forward to that match, and Dexter identifies some fine art paintings. And one particular one is a nude descending a staircase, and to which one of his friends says that it would never make Playboy.
Goodness.
I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that joke.
It's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, they're getting edgy after Walt's gone, man.
Yeah, truly.
So then here comes Dean Collingsgood, and he tells Dean Higgins that Dexter should withdraw because he's an intellectual freak and it's not fair. especially since it's clear his teammates aren't too bright. Dean Higgins dismisses this request and uses it as a chance to kind of poke at his rival. Then, as Medfield takes on Franklin in the semifinals, A.J. Arno is watching on TV.
Why is the mob watching the college knowledge tournament? Hey, yo, quick turn on the college knowledge tournament. It's going to be good today.
Self-enrichment, boss.
Maybe they had some money on it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so.
Like laying bets on the college knowledge.
A lot of action in Medfield.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's a lot of eyes. But they're betting against Alonzo Hawk. He's betting on. He's not seen, but he's there betting on it.
Mm-hmm. While correctly answering a question about cider, Dexter begins repeating Applejack, which puts him into a mechanical trance where he starts spouting out apparently random words and beeps and boops and figures. But in reality, it's just a callback, earlier in the film when we found out that, the A.J. Arno had been running the gambling dens and Applejack was his code name. So Dexter got triggered with the Applejack term and is now spouting out all this private information while on television. Arno, of course, freaks out, and I think he's getting tailored, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's getting a tailored suit.
Yeah.
Nice tailored suit.
Nice. As soon as he notices he has his operation shut down, and says they need to put that kid on ice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Got that again.
So now we know this guy is tough. And he instructs his right-hand man, Chili Walsh, to kidnap Dexter.
Chili.
And Chili. Then later that evening, Chili catches up to Dexter, who's, they're friends and they're buddies, but now he kind of he's a little bit tougher with them. And he says, Dexter, you're coming with me. But Dexter was on his way to Annie's. And anyways, Chili takes Dexter to this house in a remote location. Now, Annie, who for some reason reminds me of Liv Tyler in That Thing You Do.
Yes.
And
yes.
She has about
Perfect.
the same acting range as Liv Tyler. Sorry, Liv.
Zing.
Yeah. The others, her and the others report Dexter missing to the police. Dean Higgins is convinced that Dexter has been kidnapped by Collingsgood, who's quickly dismissed by Lieutenant Hannah.
All that taxpayer money, man. Just dismisses it.
Afterwards, we see Pete and Annie analyzing a recording of Dexter talking so strangely. Pete and Annie quite easily conclude that it's because the information in the computer is now in Dexter's brain. I mean, that was quite a jump to get to.
Very.
Yeah. They're like Applejack, A.J. Arno.
Nailed it.
I want to also back up. They have a recording of him reading the Applejack line on a reel-to-reel recorder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
was
Must have
somebody
just taped it off a TV.
just happened to be taping the live television?
Get the audio from that just in case.
Get the audio.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff and I used to hold up our tape recorder to the TV
It's
and
true.
tape stuff.
It's
off
true.
the
Well,
TV.
there you go.
Somebody probably held up a recorder to a monitor in the studio and recorded it that way.
Probably so. 'Cause
That's how you get the really pure audio.
That's right.
yeah,
Nice
it's
clean.
clean up.
Yeah, and old Pete comes on strong here. He factors in just all of a sudden it's just Pete time. I said it's like the young Lucius Malfoy Chronicles.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So they figured out that Applejack stands for A.J. Arno.
Easy,
And there's a good
easy.
gag. Yeah. And there's a good gag here with Skylar, who walks up to them and says hi, but is just completely ignored until Pete tells him to take the tapes to the police and explains the whole situation to him. And then so Skylar goes to the police station, and as the lieutenant listens to the tape, and Skylar tries to explain to him, and both the lieutenant and his partner just don't seem convinced as the other folks.
I love at the end of the scene when Skylar leaves, one of the cops says, "You ever seen anything like that before?" Like, nope.
It seems like I found it weird that they're being so dismissive of the that Dexter's missing. He's mopping the floor in the college knowledge tournament and goes missing. So every school in the tournament ought to be a suspect at this point. And they're like, nah, it can't be the mob boss. I mean, he wouldn't be tied up in any of this. I thought but
There isn't a list of usual suspects for a quiz bowl kidnapping, apparently. And also, so again, I mentioned him before, but Pete Renaday here as the detective is weird to see Henry the Bear from Country Bears doing detective work. Very good.
So Pete and Annie follow one of Arno's goon, happens to be Chili again, to the house where Dexter's being held. They sneak around the lookout and see Dexter picking winning horses from the newspaper, and another goon's calling the bets in, all while eating from a large bucket of fried chicken.
Yes. I love this bucket of chicken with like wood grain on the side is so good.
Now, I was curious why I didn't understand that until I rewatched this scene the second time. And he says, now the only reason that Dexter's helping out and helping him out with the bets and stuff is because if he doesn't pick the winning horses, then he doesn't eat. And so I was like, okay. I remember being hungry a lot in college. I'd go along with that.
Yeah. There were things I would have done in college for a bucket of chicken would
things I'd
involve criminal enterprises.
For
sure.
College.
Yeah. So the movie it kind of has a little dark humorous turn right here as Dexter's of course looking like a chipmunk with his cheeks stuffed with that sweet golden fried chicken. He overhears the henchmen talking about how they're supposed to kill him and send him to the bottom.
Casual about it too. I mean,
yeah, but then they're like, "Oh, we'll just go fishing afterwards."
Yeah, but he's like, "Is it in we're not in season yet." And he's like, we'll risk it."
Yeah, they're worried about. Yeah, one's worried about getting caught by the game warden after they just dump off a body. Yeah,
we're here to dump off a body and do some fishing.
So back on campus, Pete and his friends, who aren't afraid of a couple of bullets in the old gut, figure out they need to do something and they can't rely on the police. Pete tells Henry and Miles that they still have to show up to the college knowledge panel to represent the team. Now, here, that to me is where Act 2 should have ended, because now you've got Dexter is missing. If you follow the patterns, it's like, okay, Act 1 sets up everything. Act 2 puts them in the worst position possible. And you're like, how are our heroes going to get out of this situation? Then Act 3 is how you resolve all that. So that's my argument. That's where Act 2 should have ended. When Dexter is missing and they're like, how are we going to get him out of there? So,
but then you wouldn't have gotten to talk about the fried chicken. So
that's true. All right. That's good.
My argument is that the first act was him becoming the computer. The second act of him overcoming his arrogance and realizing who he is and what he's about. And then the third act is him conquering the tournament. Yeah. So the tournament started when I handed it off to you.
So if anybody has a script to the Computer War Tennis Shoes, we'd love to see where the real acts fall.
Please
let us know.
Or a copy of Joseph Campbell's Hero of 1,000 Faces. Check the chapter about Computer War Tennis Shoes.
So the next day, Pete and Annie have disguised themselves as painters along with their friends, and they say,
"How is this the plan?"
We're here to paint the house gag.
It worked for Clouseau. But they show up and say they've been commissioned to paint this house where Dexter's being held, and Chili is quite easily convinced that they are legit.
Hey, they check out. I made a phone call.
And the kids keep painting, but are ready to pounce as soon as there's any sign of Dexter.
We should mention that they're painting like olive is, I mean, it's kind of like day glow green and orange. It looks like a blacklit haunted house. And I just wonder where they get the supplies from, let alone.
It was on sale.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to say like somebody's uncle owned a paint company or something, because they've got like a truck with like a ton of like real like, painter
legit
equipment.
They look
really legit.
Yeah,
and like all their like outfits and stuff. But then I love that Chili's just like, okay, you're painting the house orange and green, and you got an invoice, so it must be real.
Yeah,
the truck had Medfield something on it. It had
Medfield Painters.
So they stole it from somewhere.
Jacked it, yeah.
But so back at the college knowledge panel, which is just a fun thing to say, Skyler is still trying to explain the plan to Dean Higgins, who's not too thrilled that his star student is missing. Dean Collingsgood is happy as a clam that Dexter's nowhere to be seen, and as Michael said earlier, he delivers that great line, Eugene, when called
So
a worm.
good.
Oh yeah, when he's called a worm by Dean Higgins and is accused of being the one behind this whole thing.
What I don't understand is there's a kidnapping taking place from the star of the college knowledge tournament, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going on. We can't stop now."
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah. Well,
Oh, we gotta wrap this up.
We
Let's
cannot wait.
just do it.
yeah.
Just knock this out and go home, kids.
Got $100,000 riding on this thing. We gotta get it done.
Yeah.
Jumping back to the house, AJ Applejack Arno arrives and is PO'd that there's painters there, and he decides to vet them himself, and he makes a phone call.
But who would have hired the painters but him? Isn't it his house?
Right.
Like what? Like no, I don't know. Maybe my boss, maybe somebody
Maybe his
hired
wife
the mob,
did it.
called it in. But yeah, this phone call he makes is great because he basically makes a phone call like out of this movie and into Animal House.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I.
It's like he calls Peter Riegert from Animal House.
You get Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood speaking.
Yeah, so I guess they were told to only answer the phone one time and say that they're a real paint company.
Yeah, like well, Skylar picked it up before because he was in on it, but then I guess they figured that was that and didn't tell everyone else in the house to be on the lookout for calls from mobsters.
Guys. Yeah. Well, now that Arno knows that they aren't real painters, he and his men put Dexter in a trunk to get him out of the house without being seen. But then they're suddenly assaulted by saxophone music and college kids with paintbrushes. And then Pete and the guys accidentally drop Dexter, who's in that trunk. Yeah, they drop him out the window.
Jeez.
From the second story. Yeah.
On his neck.
Yeah.
Like he's in there with his neck like tilted at like a 90-degree angle. Like snapped his neck.
With blood coming out of the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they quickly load the trunk onto a truck, and Arno and his boys come after them, and they cue the chase scene music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Benny Hill music would have been good here.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like.
A little yakety sax or something. But so Arno and his gang are driving Dexter's hot rodded dune buggy because they couldn't get any of the other cars to start. And
Yeah.
So
I thought that was pretty clever of them to put the paint in the gas.
oh, was that why? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said they had put paint in the gas tanks of all the other cars. So I thought that was clever.
It's a good use of paint.
You also don't see dune buggies anymore.
Right.
This is a very classical dune buggy form.
Yes. Yes.
So the chase begins, and Arno and his guys they begin shooting at the college kids and using what looks like a P-38. Did anybody else catch that? I just thought that was strange.
I thought, I didn't know it was a P-30. I thought it was a Luger at first, but
it may have been just first look.
which would have been an interesting choice for mobsters as well. But anyway,
Yeah, maybe they're tied to the Rocketeer mobsters. Who knows? Anyways, the kids are desperately trying to open the locked trunk containing Dexter while also attempting to slow down their pursuers using the remaining paint buckets on their getaway truck. And must have been some slippery paint because they really made them going to spin out a little bit there.
Gotta watch out for that paint. Dune buggy's pretty light.
Yeah, but I did want to say I thought it was a rather good chase scene, and there's some great stunt work that happens in there.
Yeah, it's not all blue screen. They do some like real driving here.
Yeah.
Also, I like to give a shout out to the stunt coordinator, Dick Warlock.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Dick,
I mean, he deserves a shout out just for that name alone.
But he also did the stunts for the Cat from Outer Space as well.
Ah.
So-
Oh, Dick.
There we go.
Great stunts in that one.
Unfortunately, that paint isn't enough, so Pete and the others just start chucking everything off the truck towards Arno until Bradley. Does anybody notice who Bradley was?
No.
Bradley was little Timmy from Lassie.
Oh,
Yeah.
he sure
Same guy.
was.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, Bradley fires up the paint cannon, which is on a truck. I'm not really sure
Yeah,
why
this
he
is
did
fun.
that. And just slacks Arno and his men, resulting in them crashing into a haystack and upsetting an onlooking cow. Soon thereafter, the police realized that Skyler was telling the truth, and they go to arrest Arno. So now the pressure.
There's a great line there with the cow, though. I thought with AJ, because he looks up at the cow and goes, "Yeah, shut up."
Yeah, I have to admit that I was expecting, I guess just because it's Cesar Romero, I was kind of for some reason thinking there's going to be like a little bit of a Joker thing with the paint kind of getting on his face. I don't know.
They got him with that red all over.
Yeah. So, but anyways, now the pressure's really heating up on that Dexterless Medfield Lions back at the College Knowledge Tournament as Springfield State, led by young Ed Begley Jr., is up 45-0 with time running out. The Medfield Painters getaway truck soon arrives at the tournament with Dexter, but he's showing signs of something being wrong, and before they can get Dexter ready to participate, Springfield State is now up 115-20. So in that time period,
I wonder about those 20 points.
Yeah,
I really wonder.
Good job, guys. They got one answer probably right. I wonder which one it was. So anyways, the competition continues now with Dexter, and he returns to form answering the questions correctly, but something is clearly wrong with him as he struggles to make complete sentences.
Computers, man. They're going to fail you every time.
This whole sequence has made me uncomfortable for some reason.
This is super painful. Like,
it is.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
He's like red-faced and straining. It is super awkward.
The way I would describe Dexter's breakdown would be the kind of like if Porky Pig had a baby with Jodie Foster's character from the movie Nell, and then that progeny was trying to explain what they learned after watching PBS all day. Yeah. Kind of like that.
That is a vivid picture you paint, my friend, and not far off. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anywho, Dexter eventually has what many consider the greatest comeback in college knowledge history and puts the Lions in the lead going into the final minutes of the tournament. But he finally breaks down completely just as Springfield regains the lead. Bad timing. Then, when all hope is lost, the final question is asked. Oh, by the way, did you guys notice who the moderator was?
I recognized him from somewhere, but I didn't look it up.
It's Pat Harrington Jr., who was from One Day at a Time, who played Dwayne Schneider, the super guy.
Out.
Yeah, same guy.
Crazy.
Yeah. I was like, I know that face. I just couldn't place it.
He just wasn't greasy enough.
So when all hope is lost, the final question is asked, and Dexter has returned to his regular human brain self and has nothing left in the tank. But that's when the real hero of the movie, in my opinion, gets his moment. Skyler knows the correct answer, and he rises to the occasion to make Medfield the winning team. And he wins the $100,000 prize. And, it's true what they say, guys. Big-time players make big-time plays.
I like how they play this out, too, with, like, him telling Dexter. It's like, no, you know this. I've told it to you, like, 1,000,000 times. And he's like, wait, I know this. And I love when he stands up. He's like, I know this. The guy's like, well, sit down and tell us.
But I'm a little serious about the actual hero of the movie. I mean, Skyler's the one that takes the tapes to the police and tries to explain everything. And then he's also the one that helps them. He answers the phone when Chili's trying to vet the painters. And then, he comes through here. I mean, he is the, he's the Norm of Avatar.
Norm.
He's the Norm of this movie here.
Without him, everything would have fallen apart.
True.
That is a very good point.
Yeah. Say, it was not so fast. As Medfield celebrates their victory, a paint-covered A.J. Arno and his men arrive to get those pesky kids. Dexter and the others speed off, and before Arno and his crew can get to them, and then we have a crash headfirst into the pursuing police by Arno and his guys. And
classic Medfield situation here.
Yeah, that is a classic Medfield gag for sure.
Yeah, I really wish that they had the same cop from Absent Minded Professor would have been
with his coffee.
Yeah, with his coffee would have been added a nice little nod there.
Yeah, Disney sure does like their car crashes. I mean, Freaky Friday's got car crashes.
It's true.
Boatnik's got car crashes. I mean,
it's a good plot device, man.
I guess so. So strangely, even though we see the police surround Arno, it's not exactly clear what happened to him because he just thinks he's just had a crash and he just proclaims that I have insurance. And that's it. that's all we see of Arno at that point, which I thought was very strange.
It is odd.
They don't really tie that one up.
Got to wrap it up.
Yeah. But anyways, we're now back at the Medfield College meeting room, and Dean Higgins is still complaining about money, even though they just got $100,000.
Tax money, man.
Yeah. Professor Quigley, who's not satisfied with just recently getting an expensive computer, is now wanting an electroheliospectrograph.
Jeez.
Spectrogram.
What's that going to do?
Yeah. And Dexter and the gang continue to listen in again via that discreetly placed walkie-talkie, and they're disappointed when Higgins suggests spending the prize money on upgraded plumbing. And then finally, Annie tells Dexter if they do get an electroheliospectrograph, that he shouldn't fool around with it. And there's laughs all around, and the movie is complete.
That was really a laugh to freeze frame kind of joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
The end.
And you said that was done on the studio there at the studio lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's their
Those
little meeting
exteriors.
places on the little porch at the commissary there,
Okay.
where you can sit out and have lunch.
I want to jump back to the quiz or the college knowledge thing. Did you guys notice how often they said the phrase, "That is absolutely correct"?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
pick up on that.
They say it over and over, and I just thought that was just a strange thing to say. I don't know.
It's interesting.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Until the very last, the only time they don't say it is when Skylar gives the correct answer, and they says the host says, "Yes, that is correct."
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is like, feels like a code or something, man.
Yeah, saying exactly. So
It's very formalized, the rules for college knowledge.
All right. Well, that wraps up the computer war tennis shoes. Gentlemen, it is time now to rate this movie using our specific rubric. Tonight's rubric. Robert, what you got for us?
Well, this movie took place in 1969. The style back then was, well, unique, we'll say. And one of those unique styles were turtleneck sweaters. So our rubric tonight is turtleneck sweaters.
You got to love them. I mean, I would just wear them all the time.
Oh, me too.
Missed my time. Anyway, let's get into it, boys. Plot and writing. How many turtleneck sweaters are we going to give this thing? Andy, go for it.
I think, how many turtleneck sweaters do I want to give this plot? I think there are some elements of the plot as far-fetched as the whole computer. It's like reverse Tron or reverse Matrix or something like that. But I think I'm going to give it I want to give it a 4, but I'm going to stick with a 3.
Okay. Robert, how many turtleneck sweaters are you going to give this plot and writing?
Yeah, it never was a 4 I never came close to, it was between a 2 and a 3 for me, but I watched it 3 times over and I started enjoying it more the third time. First time I watched it, I thought, okay, Andy's going to hate this movie. That was my first knee-jerk reaction. And then
I love surprising.
but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3 as well. It wasn't quite as bad for a 2, but certainly never was in the consideration for a 4 for me. So
It was never a 4 for Robert. I'll go next, and I will give it a 2 because. Michael?
I'll give it a 3. Find it middle of the roadie, and although there were a couple of like weird things that made me laugh, so that's always good in my book.
That's really strange. I'm really surprised by these. I'm surprised that I was able to it's not very realistic, but I was able to enjoy the plot more than you guys, which is
it's a fun idea. And well, it's different because I've seen this movie like as a kid, like a bunch. So it's not as new to me. So it's probably not as fresh, but it's a fun idea. And it's, I gave it a strong 3.
Okay.
Definitely.
It's like Freaky Friday kind of situation here going on. Casting and acting, we're combining these two now. So I think we'll start with Michael here.
Well, as Jeff, we decided to combine these two, but as Jeff said before we started, this is one of those movies where it's almost two different things. I find the casting a lot more strong than the acting, especially among the students. That may be a little unfair. They're all pretty good. There are just a couple of weak links. His girlfriend doesn't really, make much of an impression. But there's so many great character actors in this that it's always fun to see them like goofing around. And so I'll give it a 3 as well.
I'll piggyback off of that because I agree pretty much with you. And I will go ahead and say that I thought the casting was stronger than the acting. You got to give credit for the Kurt Russell, like the career he would go on to have and the way Disney developed him. I think that adds some extra oomph to the score. And the great character actors, again, I thought the acting was a little bit, neither here nor there. So I'll go 3. Robert?
Well, I'm reminded of the great character Michael Scott, who, when he had to summon up his acting ability, he quoted as saying, "Kurt Russell, eat your heart out." And so Michael Scott felt like Kurt Russell was the epitome of fine acting. But I got to disagree with Michael Scott here. I thought he was fine. I mean, nothing he did I cringed at, but I just felt overall the acting was just kind of, it wasn't quite a 3. I'm going to go with a 2 for the casting and acting.
2. And Andy, how many turtleneck sweaters would you give this thing?
I would not give 1. I would not give 2, but I would give 3 turtleneck sweaters.
All right. Okay. Moving on to production value. I will start this one out and I will give it a 2. I think it was fairly low budget. I enjoyed the Disney studio a lot, but the fact that they used that to me kind of showed a low production value. The Disney historian, I liked in knowing that plane was the Walt Disney's plane. Oh, that's great. The higher notes for all the cars, the dune buggy and the special fantasy car, that gets a point in my book. Robert, how many turtleneck sweaters do you give the production value here?
I give it a 2 as well. I really wish they had done some more nods to Medfield as a callback to other movies that had used that setting, and they didn't give hardly any besides the name.
Yeah, it felt very disconnected from the other. Yeah.
So I'm with you. There were some nods that I liked, but overall it was a 2. wasn't anything to be excited about.
Michael?
Yeah, I'll go with 2 as well. In a lot of ways, it feels like a much smaller film than even The Absent-Minded Professor, which was like really an effects-driven film and shot at the college. This had that one like static establishing shot of Medfield, but the rest was on the studio lot, and it really did feel a little more on the budget side. The car chase was good. I mean, that was a little bit of business, but the rest just kind of felt kind of small. So 2.
And Andy?
I think I liked this movie more than you guys did. I'm closer towards a 3, so I'm gonna go with a 3. I thought for its time, I thought they did a rather good job. So I'm gonna go with a 3.
Okay. We will end up with entertainment value. I'm gonna go right back to you, Andy. What you got?
I enjoyed this movie. I went into it not knowing anything about it. When it took that turn towards a crime, that crime plot, I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting." As I said earlier, I don't quite understand what the tennis shoes and the computer part have to do with each other, but overall, as silly as it was and as far fetched as it was, I enjoyed it. It did not make college recruiting look good at all. But yeah, I thought it was fun. So I guess I should give it a number.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 4 on the entertainment.
Okay. All right. I think I'm going to send it to Robert next. Robert, entertainment value?
Everything's been in the middle of the road, either a 3 or a 2. I was more entertained, like I said, the second and third time I watched it. It's been a long time. I watched this maybe when I was like 8. It was on the Disney Channel many, many years ago when I was a kid, and I haven't seen it since. So it was nice to pick it up again and kind of remember some of it. But I'm leaning a little towards a 4, but I think I'm going to stick with a 3.
Okay. Michael?
I am definitely going with a 4. I think it's a fun movie. Like, people make fun of like movies from this era as being like the sort of formulaic comedy, but I mean, it's a fun idea, and like everybody's fun in it, and there are a lot of fun faces, and again, go back to these actors that show up, and I like the feeling that they create of this world. Like in the later Dexter Riley movies, I mean, Skylar's in them, and it's the same kind of actors over and over again. So I like that it has a fun, silly story, but it also has like this group of people. It's not just Dexter, it's this, everybody, a lot of people chipped in to what was going on. And, Cesar Romero is a fun villain, a fun bad guy, and it's always fun to see him pop up. So yeah, I just think it's really entertaining. So yeah, 4 for me.
And I will end up, and something is just off about this movie for me, and it always has been. I've always kind of been confused by this movie as a kid. So, and I like a lot of the pieces, but something doesn't come together to make it entertaining for me. So, I'm gonna give it a 2, which I know I don't know why. It's just boring to me, and I think that the sequels or the parts of the trilogy I like more than this one. For some reason, it just does not come together for me. So I will be that guy. So
that's all right. Somebody's got to be.
Here comes the moment where we might go into infinity, but we do need to punch in the computer wore tennis shoes into the computer that wore tennis shoes here. Robert, are you ready to do this?
I'm ready. I'm firing it up right now. He is taking the
I hope
info.
There's a lady in a bathtub that's also a car.
Yes.
Maybe there's a stack overflow, fault error. We really should have done this starting with 0 and 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
That would have messed up that computer for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our total for the computer that wore tennis shoes is a 2.75. That puts us at number 6 out of 9 for overall ranking.
There you have it. It's a low score for the computer wore tennis shoes. Michael, what did Leonard Maltin say about this movie?
I had a hard time finding Leonard Maltin saying anything about this movie. The closest I could come was a quote on IMDb, which, may or may not be reliable, saying that he said it was the first of a series of cookie cutter Disney comedies, which I don't think you can blame it for that. If it's the first,
right,
then it's not a cookie cutter comedy.
Stating the obvious there, Leo.
Yeah. So that may or may not be what Leonard Maltin thought about this movie.
Nice try, Leonard. Well,
Lenny.
That will wrap up this movie. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? I think, we are back at Medfield College. We may be back here again with these characters. Any final thoughts?
So Andy, I do have one question. So you work in the computer industry.
Yes.
And you've taken computer courses before.
Correct.
So how accurate was that computer class? Did you guys do experiments like that when you were taking your computer science courses?
Yeah. I felt actually like I was back in college. It was exactly like that.
I think this is part of my problem with this movie is as a child watching it as like, I'm so confused about what computers do because of this movie. And then it's like, oh, well, now I'm mad because this has nothing to do with reality. I thought this was like more factual.
And yet it doesn't like open the door to let the cat in. I think a lot of people at Disney were confused about the difference between high school and college.
Yes.
Yeah, there seemed to be some confusions there. Yeah, with the dean having the PA and that sort of thing.
Yeah, their standardized
and
tests and their
tests,
crunchy
yeah.
sandwiches.
All right, so that's the first episode of season 2 in the books. We have an exciting one coming up next. We're going to stick with our computer theme. This time, instead of the computer traveling into Kurt Russell's brain, old Jeff Bridges, he's going to travel deep into a mainframe in the Disney classic Tron. I am excited to talk about Tron, boys. Who all has seen Tron? Everybody's seen Tron, right?
Yeah,
I
love
have
Tron.
not seen Tron all the way through.
Whoa!
Really?
What?
Yes.
We watched it together in college. Well, you had to have watched it.
No, I didn't. I've only seen I've seen it probably it all, but I've never seen it. Sat down and watched it from start to finish. I started to watch it from start to finish as a kid when it was on the Wonderful World of Disney. My mom goes, "This is boring," and turned it off.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
that's on brand. For her.
Computers.
So yeah, I've never seen it from start to finish. So
Wow.
Well, that's exciting. This will be.
I remember when you got it, Andy. Yeah, you were real excited, but I don't. If I watched it, I do not remember it at all when we watched it in college. If we watched it in college,
There's a lot to talk about with Tron, so I'm excited to get into that next month. So stay tuned. Hey, Andy,
Yes, sir.
what do you think about that new season 2 graphic design Todd Knaperek cooked up for us?
It changed my life when I saw it.
Woo! Talk about the computer that, well, I don't know. Anyway, Todd's back for season 2. You know, we'd look pretty bland without his dedication and hard work behind the scenes. Hey, don't look bland with your graphics. Get Todd to get you some branding or rebranding. He can do it all. Branding, rebranding, whatever. If you don't know where to find him, he's at Upwork and bydandgraphics.com. BYDAND graphics.com. Todd is going to make you look good season after season. So
He's a seasoned professional.
Yes, he is.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Freeze frame.
So from all of us here at Medfield College Film Society to all of you, we wish you well. As always, we look forward to seeing you next month with Ron. So long, folks.
Proud are we of mighty Medfield, our mother dear. All your sons and daughters hail to thee, Medfield College of Technology. And while we hold your banner high, we shout your praises to the sky.